Hello and welcome back to Logan Sounds Off. Today I'm speaking to the leader of one of the most incredible new alternative rock groups on the scene, Viagra Boys. They released their third studio album, Cave World, in 2022. Uh, Try and get it on vinyl if you're a vinyl collector like me. It's an incredible album. Definitely pick it up. And they're incredible. They've got a new album coming out soon. We know no information about it, but we're excited for it anyways. With concerts going on, a new live video out as well. There's a lot that's happening in the world of shrimp tech and Viaga Boys. So, how are you, Sebastian?
I'm very good. Very good. It's Friday. I'm excited for the weekend.
It's hard not to be excited on a Friday. So, for those who don't know you and your work, not only with Viaga Boys, but with IH3, your whole career to date, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm 34 years old. My name is Sebastian Murphy. I grew up in America. I moved to Sweden when I was 17. I've been tattooing for 15 years. I started making music about 10 years ago. And yeah, I play in the weird rock band Viagra Boys.
Very interesting rock group and very interesting sound, and we're going to get into that and a whole lot more. But looking back to when you were growing up, I know some of your musical influences were included Hank Williams and Joy Division,
Yes.
which are very different.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm wondering, who else did you listen to growing up, and did you have any guilty pleasures really with it?
Oh yeah. I mean, sure. When I was about 13, 14, and 12, and those ages, I definitely listened to what was big for kids my age back then, which was a lot of, pop punk like Blink 182 and Sum 41, and I loved Papa Roach and all this stuff. And then I slowly started listening to my dad's records instead, and that's when I got into the Pixies and Joy Division and Hank Williams and other good music. But yeah, before that, I definitely listened to a lot of uh, guilty pleasure music for sure.
That's really, really cool. And yeah, some very interesting influences there. I know actually you mentioned Pixies. The day we're recording this, it's actually the release of a Pixies new album, which I think is really, really
Mhm.
cool. Yeah, The Night the Zombies Came, I think it's
Interesting.
called. So I just thought that was kind of a
Oh,
cool coincidence. And then
oh,
growing up
that's
in
awesome.
America, oh sorry, yeah, it's pretty cool. I can't wait to have a listen. Growing up in America and then moving to Sweden, when I believe you were around 17, did the music scene differ from what you were hearing from America to Sweden?
I guess so. I mean, I kind of choose my own music scene and what I'm listening to, but I mean, a lot of people out here, they listen to a lot of indie and a lot of techno. So I guess that kind of influenced me and made me listen to a bit more electronic music. And yeah, I used to hate electronic music, and then as a teenager, and then I got more into it as an adult, and it's definitely influenced the Swedish electronic scene has definitely influenced my sound for sure. So yeah.
I think that's actually really interesting because when I was listening to Cave World, one of the tracks on the album, Ain't No Thief, I thought was kind of very electronic music inspired, just the beat of it and all, the rhythm of it. I thought it was really, really interesting. So I think that's really, really cool. And obviously, we know you started 10 years ago, so you've now been in the scene for a long time and you've gained a lot of fans and played a lot of shows. But looking back to when you started off Viaga Boys with bass player Henrik, uh, could you tell us about that? Because I believe you met up together. How did that happen? And why did you decide to start Viaga Boys?
I used to meet Henrik a lot at the bar. He was dating a tattooer that I worked with, and so I'd meet him a lot, and we would talk a lot about music and talked a lot about Flipper and other bands that a lot of other Swedes didn't really listen to, and so we kind of connected in that sense. And then he heard me sing at a karaoke one day, so he asked me to join a band that he was hadn't really started yet, but he was going to start. And at the time, he was playing in a hardcore band called Nitad, and he was playing in another band called Pig Eyes, I was a big fan of Pig Eyes. So I was like, yeah, I'll try. I'll definitely try this out. And yeah, we had a band practice, and I hated it. I hated singing, but he forced me to do it. And yeah, the rest is history.
It's very, very interesting how it just started off the cuff, and it's very interesting where you guys have went, starting off in 2016 with your first EP, Consistency of Energy, which is one of my favorite releases of you guys. Um, that brought you onto the alternative rock scene and gained you some fans. And what was it like releasing your debut EP, putting it out to the world? Obviously, it's a very new and different sound to a lot of music that's released nowadays. Were you excited about what people's reaction would be to the music?
Yeah, definitely. It was really cool to see. There weren't really any other bands, active bands at least in Sweden at the time, that sounded like that. And I think yeah, it was interesting. People got really into it right away, or at least people in Stockholm did. And yeah, it was very cool to be accepted into the scene pretty quickly, and yeah, it was an awesome feeling for sure.
It's a really, really cool EP. Obviously, if you want to listen to any of Viaga Boys' music, anything Sebastian Murphy related, all links will be down below for you to listen. So check that EP out if you've never listened to the band before. And then 2 years later, from 2016, you guys moved on to your biggest release yet, your debut album, which was Streetworms, which included the hit single Sports, which a lot of your fans would have discovered you by. I know that's how I discovered you guys, along with the recommendation from Josh Homme of you guys. But I wanted to ask regarding Streetworms because of the many different themes it explores and how different all the different songs are. I'd love to ask you a bit about how was the songwriting process like on this record?
It was I don't really remember too much, but I think we just started. Banker wrote a lot of the bass riffs, and then we usually would take everything from bass riff and just play bass and drums, and then we would add some guitar, and then I would just write some random lyrics. I wrote most of it in the studio while we were recording it because I'm a huge procrastinator, and I don't really like go around writing profound things in uh in a book or anything like that, or I'll never write. I'll usually just write a song while we're recording it, or I'll do like kind of freestyle rap or some shit, and then take it from there and pick out little parts of it that I like, and then build a song on maybe a few words that I thought was interesting. And yeah, a lot of those songs I'm very proud of, and yeah, they're. I don't know how I wrote them. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? But yeah, I really like them.
I really love them too, and I actually just love that songwriting process, just writing it while you're in the studio. It's really authentic and pure that way. And even just mentioning there where you were saying regarding the bass and drums were the first things to be kind of written and you built off of that. You can definitely hear that in a lot of your earlier work, how prominent those instruments were during that record. I really, really like it. Um, and then also we had after Shrimp Sessions the release of uh or sorry, after Streetworms, the release of Shrimp Sessions, which is beloved by a lot of fans and a really interesting release that you put up on your YouTube channel, a live album. Could you tell us what inspired the release of Shrimp Sessions?
Um, I think it's just like when we record music, we try to add elements that probably won't really sound like that when we're playing live, and I just feel like we have a completely we have a much harder like sound when we're playing live, and I feel like was important to kind of convey that as well, so that you get both sides of the coin. I love studio recordings, but I also love live recordings. So yeah, that's just kind of what we were thinking, and I think we've done it for every album so far. Yeah.
That's really, really cool. And I, as well, you had that continued with Trim Sessions too, as you were saying, and as well, which we'll get to speak into towards the end of the interview, live at the Salt Shed, which was very interesting. And I loved that.
Yeah.
Very like amazing. I loved watching that video. It was really, really cool. But after some more bonus releases, like a deluxe edition of the album and some EPs, including Common Sense and things like that, we got the first single for your new album, Welfare Jazz. It must have been cool after 3 years for you guys to get back into the studio.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we were probably in the studio much before 3 years. I mean, Welfare Jazz was released long after it was recorded for some reason. I think mostly due to COVID. Or
Oh,
no. Maybe COVID came out. No, COVID came after that. I'm mixing things up. But I don't know. All of our albums kind of have a long, weird progress where it's mostly finished, and then there's months of dilly dallying, and I don't remember why, but it got pushed forward a lot. But yeah, it was definitely nice to release something for sure.
well, fair enough. That makes sense. And then also with fans waiting those 3 years, they definitely were satisfied with Welfare Jazz, not because it's had the same power as Streetworms. It was a completely different beast, but including a really interesting twist at the end, which I know you've spoken about in so many interviews. But I just want to touch on is the two country tracks, In Spite of Ourselves
Oh,
and To the Country. And I know this was a very long lasting idea. Country was an idea that you guys wanted to do.
but
But
probably
was
not us as a band, but mostly me.
oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really, really interesting. But was it an easy choice to pick these two songs for the album? Because I know one of them's a cover of a John Prine classic.
Yeah, I mean, it was easy. It kind of came naturally. I just felt like I heard that song one day, and I'm like, oh my God, we need to do a cover of this. And at the time, I was just listening. I was listening to a lot of country every day, and like just kind of made me want to do something in the spirit of country. And yeah, I'm glad we did it. Yeah, and I'm glad, yeah, we got to do. It was nice having a woman's touch on an album as well, and having Amy was a real pleasure. She's was super fun to work with, and yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, I'm really glad we did that.
It's really an incredible part of the album, and I remember when me and my family were starting to discover more of your music. One of the things that really captured us for a very long time was that country part of the album. I thought that was really, really interesting. And I have a funny question for you, just actually about a song on the album, one of the singles and one of my favorite tracks on Welfare Jazz, which was Creatures. And my dad and I were wondering where it actually, the lyricism and the story behind it has a resemblance to a Futurama episode. And I know this is kind of strange about Layla's parents who live under the ground or under the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
of
I've seen
trading
all of
copper
Futurama, so
and
yeah, that's.
stole bikes. Was this inspiration for the song at all, or is this just a
I
strange
mean, if it
coincidence?
if it was, then it was a subconscious inspiration because the theme of the song, uh, I mean, it's from being an amphetamine addict, and that's kind of how they live out here in Sweden. And how I lived for a few years is just they're just very obsessed with computer parts and metal and stealing bikes, and that's kind of just a lifestyle of a speed freak out here. Which is yeah, but it's definitely interesting to compare it to Layla's parents. I've never thought about that, but when you said that, I remember that. But yeah, that's cool.
That's really, really interesting. Um, and
You'll
then
have to ask your dad about that, but yeah.
I know you mentioned Amy Taylor there, and I would love to talk to you about In Spite of Ourselves, which is an incredible track and a great single. If you don't know who Amy Taylor is from the incredible alternative rock group Amel and the Sniffers. Also, they released a new album today, the day of recording. So links to Amel and the Sniffers will be down below to stream that new album because they're incredible, and definitely it's just a cool indie group you should check out. Definitely do. But
Yeah,
in
they
spite,
rule.
yeah, they're very cool. How did the collaboration between you and Amy, the band and Amy, come about for this track?
I think we probably met at a few like festivals and shows, and we were really big fans of them since they started. Pretty much, I remember listening to them before I started making music as well. And yeah, just when we were like, okay, this, I'm like, oh, I got to do it. I want to do a cover of this song, and then I'm, oh, it's perfect because then I got to do it a duo. And the first person that came to my mind was obviously Amy, and yeah, it just felt perfect. And like also with her thick Australian accent, it's like it's yeah, it's awesome to do a country song where someone sings in a thick Australian accent. You know, Australian country. I haven't heard too much of that, but it probably exists somewhere. You know,
It was really cool, and it was interesting to hear on the song Amy's voice, an incredible singer. So yeah, check out Amel and the Sniffers.
do it.
And in spite of ourselves as a collaboration, this was one of the first, I believe the first, I may be wrong, collaboration uh single that you guys had, and it turned out so cool, this country track. And I was wondering, because I know you are big fans of certain musicians, and I'm wondering, is there anybody who you would love to collaborate who's either living or dead?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'd love to collaborate with probably LP from Run the Jewels. Maybe if it was a dead person, I would say Waylon Jennings. He's my favorite dead person. And yeah, that's all that comes to mind right now. I'll just, yeah, those two.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
um really cool picks there. And it's funny you mentioned that hip hop collaboration. We're going to be chatting about Cave World now, the latest studio album, but not for long, hopefully, from Viaga Boys, which does contain a hip hop collaboration, which we'll get to. But while writing Cave World, which is an incredible album and very, very different again from you had Streetworms now to Welfare Jazz, this is a completely different phase of Viaga Boys. What was the songwriting process for you? Because I know you went very in depth on topics in 2022 about these different songs on Cave World.
Yeah, the songwriting progress was different for sure because I wrote about 13 songs before, or I wrote a few. I don't know if it was 13, but I wrote a bunch of songs that we recorded in a studio out in the forest here in Sweden. And I was really happy with all those, and we were all on our way back. And I'm like, fuck yeah, these songs rule. And then we were home for like a few months, and I just we were like, you know what, we can make this better. So I rewrote everything, and we made a completely different album. And it's somehow ended up including a lot about what was going on in the times, and there was a bit of a political theme going on, which to me was new and also just horrible. Like because I'm not very good at expressing myself in a political manner, and I don't feel like I'm very smart when it comes to that type of stuff. But I know what I feel, and I usually just write things for my feelings, you know. And so it was very uncomfortable for me to write those things, and at the same time, very free, made me feel kind of free from. And it was kind of cathartic to somehow write about what I felt about the political status of our world, but also yeah, also very uncomfortable. But not all of it's political. It's only a couple songs, but it was enough to make me feel weird.
Yeah,
But I'm happy I did it. It was a cool album, and it's mostly just about the absurdity of the world, and not really. Yeah, I mean, it's just we live in a really fucked up world, and we're all
no,
gonna
no,
die.
yeah, and I understand what you're saying, especially where there's only a couple of political tracks. But to me, it's like punk rock loser and creepy crawlers next to each other could not be more completely different subjects. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, and
But
I like that about the album, that there's so many different styles of songs in there, and I think that's what we want to do. I mean, I could do an entire album that sounds like a first EP. That would be pretty easy, but and I'd love to. I mean, maybe I will one day, but I also enjoy pushing myself and making new stupid music that sounds even weirder or less weird, and challenging myself kind of to make yeah, it's fun.
it's really, really cool. And that whole album is incredible from start to finish with the different topics spoken about. But also, regarding, we were talking about a bit of a hip hop theme going on in some of your collaborations, starting off with Jason Williamson of Sleaford Mods fame. Really
Oh,
amazing group. Really good.
oh yeah.
I think I have UK Grim on vinyl. Yeah, I do.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
sent you.
they were
Yeah.
one of our a really big influence. They were a huge influence when we started before we recorded our first EP. I remember we listened to a lot of All Tied Up in Knots, and we were just so inspired by the simplicity of it all. And we kind of wanted to make our music these days isn't as simple as it used to be, but it keeps that core practice of just kind of a repetitive bass line and then lyrics on top of it. And yeah, it was such an honor to be able to work with one of the dudes that inspired me to make music. And yeah, we're still really good friends today. Yeah, I love Jason and Andrew. They're both great dudes.
It's honestly a fantastic track, really, really interesting. And that bass line is fantastic. And even you mentioned they're tied up in knots. I do not know much Sleaford Mods. I would know UK Grim, and I would know just that song off Divide and Exit, Tied Up in Knots. That blew me away when I heard it.
Oh, Divide and Exit. That's what I meant. The
You're sorry,
album.
Divide. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that song, though,
yeah,
amazing, is really, really good.
yeah.
So that's how relatable I can be with you regarding Sleaford Mods. Ask me anything else about them, don't know. But actually, Iggy Pop listens to Sleaford Mods.
Oh, he does.
See,
Yeah, no.
yeah, I thought I just that's an interesting fact if you didn't know, the viewer, that actually um he listens to Sleaford Mods. I think that's really, really cool. As well as, though, obviously Cave World. So 3 studio albums, a load of EPs, and tons of uh different releases coming out. You also released The Salt Shed on YouTube. Again, link will be down below. One of the best concerts I've ever seen. It looked
Oh, thank you,
out
man.
of this world. It was so cool. Thank you for putting it up there. It was so cool. And I know you're going to be touring Australia next month. We were discussing it before we came on camera. And when it comes to venues that you've played, are there any that were mind-blowing to play, that were just kind of insane to play, or that surprised you while playing them? I know this might be hard to pick one, so if there's a couple that you might feel that way, or none, I'd love to hear your
Yeah, I
answer.
mean, mostly not venues. I feel like the biggest thing for me is when I played in Chicago, I think last year, and I just remember seeing the crowd and thinking like, what the fuck are all these people here to see me? And there was over 10,000 people there, and it was crazy. And then we played in Denmark this year, and I remember the band before us had a few thousand people watching them, and I go, oh, okay, it's probably going to be like this. And then I came out, and there was 17,000 people watching us, and I was like, wow. And that's always just such an awesome feeling to see all these people that want to see a stupid band called Viagra Boys. It's insane, and definitely nothing I ever thought would happen to me. And yeah. So yeah, and then of course lots of great venues I've played at, but like I think my fondest memories of venues are probably playing in the beginning when we would play for 20 people in a tiny little bar, and like that's probably not going to happen again, and or maybe it will, but it's yeah, that kind of stuff sticks with you for sure. Like just when we were struggling in the beginning and playing for people that had never heard us, and you get into fights with people, and yeah, it was a weird time, and it's a huge contrast from how it is today, and yeah, I think about that pretty often.
Wow, that's a really, really interesting answer. And I know playing 17,000 people is intense. And it's amazing to see Viaga Boys having that much attention on them
Yeah.
because you guys are so interesting and so out there. And I think that's really, really cool and very admirable. And one thing that is very out there and very strange is your videos. Your videos
Yeah.
are sometimes so weird. It's uncanny. It's brilliant. I love them,
Well,
and
thank you, man. Yeah.
it's one of my favorite things about the band, and I think it adds so much more to the tracks. But my question for you guys is, who comes up with the concepts? Who came up with punk rock loser, like that
It's
whole saloon
usually
type style?
usually a collaboration between us, maybe a director, and other people we work with. Um, Sometimes it'll come from me, sometimes yeah, but usually it's a collaboration. I've got a few I've got a few new ideas for videos now where I've actually like written a whole script. But it's also fun to work with someone that makes videos and kind of let them do what they think they should do with the song, you know. It's always fun to see someone else's take on the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I have two questions for you, but I can kind of combine them into one.
Sure.
Recommendations or tips? Do you have any albums, films, podcasts, books, or anything that you want to vent, or any tips that you would give to younger musicians who you would like to see on the scene?
Sure. Tips I gotta look at the name of this album. Well, I'm probably not in the video right now, but I'm looking at something. Where the fuck is this? Ah, hello?
Yeah.
Are you there?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
just
Sorry.
yeah.
I might have cut out. But so when it comes to an album, I would say there's an album by Whiskey David. It's a full album on YouTube. You can find it. I think it's an LP rip. And it's got a song called Whiskey by Whiskey David on it. And that's my favorite album right now. I just listen to it all the time. Matt Sweeney showed me it a few years ago. And then otherwise, podcasts, I would say I only listen to the same two podcasts all the time. And it's one called Swindled, which is about like different people ripping people off and stuff. And it's a really good podcast. And then another one is one called Conspiracy Inc. And it's about conspiracies and politics and other mad stuff. But yeah, check that out. I listen to that one all the time. And yeah, I think that's it. And then otherwise, if you want to read a book called Cherry by Nico Walker. It's an amazing book about heroin addiction and war and bank robberies and yeah, all the dark stuff. And then yeah, and then otherwise yeah, if you're a new musician, I would just recommend putting yourself out there. And like if you're recording a bunch of stuff at home, you know, release it, because I know a lot of really talented people that never release anything because they've got bad self-esteem. And then I know a lot of very untalented people that release too much. But if you're talented, I mean, if you're doing something weird and you know, I don't know, just believe in yourself and yeah, put yourself out there. That's my tip.
That's a
Pro
brilliant
tip.
tip and great recommendations. Thank you so much, Sebastian. I know
Thank you, Logan. You're a
you
legend.
need
Yeah,
to
thank
leave.
you so much. This was fun.
Thank
And
you so much.
take care of yourself.
Can't
And
wait to see the new album, Sebastian.
thank you so much, brother. Take care.
See ya. Bye bye.
Bye bye.